the one reason, and I think it is important, is that I'm one of the founding members of AKNY New York, which is the Greece Solidarity Movement. And just quickly, before I turn to the situation in Greece, I want to say that when we founded AKNY, it was really with the expectation that this moment would come, that this historic breakthrough would come, and that there would be a moment upon which much, for the left and the rest of the world, including right here in New York, much would depend in terms of protecting the historic breakthrough that we see in Greece and what it might represent for the international left. And so I'm very excited to see so many faces in the room. The second reason why I'm here, despite my language impediments, is to speak about, specifically to speak about the role of the left platform, and specifically the role of DEA, the ISO sister organization within the left platform. And I've spent many early mornings this week speaking to people in Greece, and I want to talk a little bit about the perspective, building on some of what Nantina said, talk a little bit about the perspective of the left platform, because I think it's particularly important at this moment where the leadership's in government, and there's when we talk about Syriza, it's not necessarily the same as talking about the government. And so I think it's important to start, and Alan made reference to this, to think a little bit about the history of Syriza and where it comes from. Because as Alan properly noted, it really grew up as a movement out of the global justice movement, and so represents an important trajectory of a fight against austerity going back, more than 10 or 15 years now, and it represents a coalition of the radical left of and by the movements themselves that were part of that struggle. And that struggle in the broadest sense of anti-austerity in all its manifestations, within the trade unions, within the social movements, in every possible way. And it was only through that process and through the explicit rejection of the kind of historic capitulation of social democracy that Syriza could have gained the confidence of the Greek working class, a working class which I hope people realize is one that's been steeled over 50 or 60 years of brutal fights going back to the Second World War through the dictatorships, brutal fights for basic democratic rights. And so to win the trust and confidence of the Greek working class is not an insignificant victory. So that history up to 2012 and the elections in 2012 is important. There's a second struggle that unfolds after 2012 within Syriza that represents the necessity of the left platform, because there's a struggle starting in 2012 within Syriza about what's going to be the strategic perspective at a time in which, post 2012, there's an exhaustion within the movements. When people talk about the numerous, the dozen, 20, 30 general strikes, this is generally in the period prior to the summer of 2012. And so after those historic elections, when we first saw the breakthrough of Syriza, you have a period of social exhaustion, of people struggling and with these general strikes, with these social mobilizations, struggling with, in the face of brutal repression of the state. And the sense is that, particularly after, for a variety of reasons, but particularly after that 2012, the movements and the class in general started increasingly to look to the electoral arena as necessary to kind of unleash the possibilities that the strikes and the movements themselves had been unable to break through. And that created a struggle internal to Syriza, which I'm sure people would not at all find surprising, a kind of a turn on certain parts of the right wing of Syriza towards electoralism, a move to seek alliances with sections to the right. And in this context, it became important to create a left platform within Syriza that could stand up and defend the historic roots of Syriza and its relationship to the social movements, and to defend some very basic principles about what the face of the anti-austerity fight was going to look like, and the idea that the electoral breakthrough was not the end-all and be-all, but was just one phase of a battle which ultimately was going to depend on the capacity to mobilize the social base out of which Syriza came. In that period between 2012 and now, the left platform as a whole, and understand it represents an array of forces committed to a kind of broad platform, was able to actually grow in strength despite some efforts on the part of the leadership to marginalize and to make more accommodating its public face. If people managed to see Alexis Tsipras when he was here in New York, I don't know, was this a year ago or whatever, maybe more now, you got a sense of some of that politics. Now there's an entirely new challenge that the comrades are facing, in a situation in which some of the leadership of the left platform has decided to go into ministries at a time when there are tens of thousands of now governmental jobs up at stake for activists. There's increasingly a need to defend some of the basic principles that the left platform had stood for within Syriza. And I taking this, I understand that this is a critical position I'm taking, and and people need to understand that I'm offering this position in the context of recognizing the historic breakthrough and opportunities that this represents, that the election represents. But I also think we need to be honest about the struggles internal to Syriza and the choices that have been made. I want to talk a little bit about the decision to enter into a coalition government with ANEL, the independent Greeks, which is a right-wing populist party led by a kind of out-and-out kind of racist anti-Semite, but aligned on the basis of an anti-austerity politics. And I want to say, if people saw some of the debates between Richard Seymour and Kouvalakis about this, it seems very clear to the comrades within DEAS, the comrades within the left platform, that this was not just a tactical choice, that this represents a strategic choice on the part of the leadership about how they're going to approach governing. And this is important for us to recognize and think about and reckon with. The decision to go into government with ANEL was predated by debates about going into running a coalition campaign with DMAR. It's not just DMAR's. There are other ministers and vice ministers in government who equally represent forces to the right of the mainstream of Syriza. Similarly, on the debt issue, Varoufakis, and I know he's a bit of a celebrity on the left now, and for good reason in terms of some of his popular positions. In a lot of ways, the economic team being headed up by Varoufakis represents the right wing of Syriza, the most kind of a wing of Syriza which is looking most to reach some sort of accommodation with capital. And so there's, one of the struggles is the question of the moving away from the historic commitment of Syriza with regards to the repudiation of the debt towards what Varoufakis is talking about, which is a plan for sustainable repayment. And I want to talk a little bit about this and the basis upon which we judge that. And I realize I'm running out of time, so I'll end. It's not. I think it's important for us not to on the left to make an assessment not on the basis of abstract positions. There's a very real concrete challenges facing the Syriza government and facing the left as a whole. And I think we need to be prepared to assess the compromises that may be made in the face of the Syriza government on two fundamental bases, one of which Natasha spoke about at the beginning of the program, which is the extent to which these compromises can successfully meet the challenges of the very real humanitarian crisis which Greece is facing. An ability to really raise the minimum wage, to put in place collective bargaining laws that protect workers and the trade unions, to deal with the poverty of pensioners, to put in place tax reform for the poor and working class. And to deal with the systemic corruption that's historically part of the Greek state. The second way that we need to be able to judge it is the extent to which these actions on the part of the government and in its current dance with the ECB and with the Germans and with European capital more generally succeed in strengthening the movements. Succeed in doing what they were able to do yesterday, was just to bring tens of thousands of people out broadly in support of an anti-austerity fight, not just about the Syriza government, but about the hopes and expectations of the broad working class in Greece and honestly in much of Europe. And I think it's on that basis that we need to judge the likely, the compromises should they come. Once we get our heads around the material reality, political, economic, and social of the conjuncture, there are any number of questions and historical political comparisons we on the left might want to make. And now that the government in Syriza, as I've said, not the same thing, have started to move, there are any number of questions and criticisms that might arise and may be justified. But I think for us in the United States, and here I'm speaking with my non-Greek hat on and very much a part of the U.S. left, this is a caution for my comrades broadly. We need to understand that these are not questions and debates that are alien to the Greek left at all, if this panel has shown us anything. In fact, to be honest, for any number of historical reasons, as I mentioned earlier, the Greek left has and remains more rooted in the class and with a breadth of historical continuity to generations of explicitly left and working class struggles of epic proportions stretching back through the last century. And there's a strength and maturity to the left that we should both recognize in our criticisms when we raise them. And I think it speaks to that understanding and expectation is one that we need to take with the criticisms that we raise. And I hope the criticisms that I raised tonight will be taken in that spirit, and the understanding that the need for broad solidarity, for the humanitarian struggle, for solidarity for the political struggle is crucial at this moment. And the success of this experiment in Greece, I think, means an enormous amount for the international left, both in Europe and in the United States. Thank you.